Greetings and salutations, friends. Today we're going to be talking a bit about Skaven clans, and more specifically, the ones hinted at in the Total War Warhammer 2 logo. But before we get to that, we need to talk a little bit about what clans even are. I'm assuming that anyone out there that actually understands the language I'm currently speaking has at least a vague understanding of what the word clan means. And the Skavens have not been particularly innovative with redefining the meaning of the word. The clans are simply just vast, gargantuan gatherings of Skaven that have gathered together in the hopes of being able to protect one another, or to be more precise, millions of individual Skavens that have gathered together in the desperate belief that they themselves can receive some form of protection by having another guy standing in front of them and hopefully in the path of any incoming ordnance. There is, however, one major divergence from what we might usually consider to be a clan. Generally speaking, there would be some sort of sense of loyalty or, communal integrity, some form of cohesion or camaraderie within such a familial group. However, within Skavendom, words like friends, allies, or trust are all considered the most base and vile of expletives. After all, within Skaven society, if such a word as society could even truly be used to refer to the never-ending seance of chaos, violence, and rough backstabbings, betrayal is never a question of if, but simply when. And while this admittedly shaky foundation, made up primarily of rat vomit and piss mixed in with swamp water, might not seem the most fruitful of foundations upon which to build a castle, the Skaven have a very simple solution. For no matter how deep and disgusting the rat-fluid swamp might be, it is an inescapable truth that if you throw enough vermin bodies into it, then sooner or later, in most cases the later, the bodies will have created an artificial island of morbid stability. Naturally, the acquisition of so many semi-fresh carcasses could potentially prove problematic, but if there's one thing the Skaven Under-Empire is never in short supply of, then it is most certainly dead and or dying Skaven. Simply put, the thousands of various clans fight each other tooth and nail, often literally, rather than figuratively, for any shred of advantage until they have amassed themselves said foundation of corpses. After that, the clan in question can look forwards to never-ending struggle to maintain their treacherous foothold in the face of open aggression from pretty much every other goddamn clan in existence, while simultaneously doing their level best to chip away at the foundations of their neighbours, hoping to send them plummeting back into the frothing fury of Skavendom. And so, clans rise and clans fall in a virtually endless cycle of excessive violence and entirely predictable betrayals. And while the leading cause of Skaven deaths are still, without a shadow of the doubt, other Skavens, and not likely to change anytime soon, it used to be a lot worse. Before the Council of 13 was established, Skavendom was locked in a perpetual state of civil war, with hundreds if not thousands of warring clans forming constant never-ending variations of alliances, compacts and other treaties that were broken almost as quickly as they were formed. If one clan looked like it was about to pull ahead of the other clans, they would swiftly unite in a great big mass, dragging said clan back down into the murk once more, but the clan would never be fully destroyed, or, well, almost never anyways, as the very moment the clan ceased to be a direct threat to the others, their lines would violently shatter into a million pieces as each and every member desperately sought to betray and backstab the others to gain some measure of success or small advantage over the others. Skavendom was, quite simply, bleeding itself white. Millions of Ratman lives were extinguished at a frightening pace that even the Skavens found it pretty hard to replace, until it seemed that the very species itself would finally destroy itself before any one of the clans could gain true mastery over the others. This was the point at which the Skaven god, the Horned Rat, finally intervened. He had been amusing himself watching his blessed children fight each other, tooth, nail, claw, fang, stabby point, swords, pike, whatever the hell they could get their hands on, while beating each other to death with their newborn children in many cases. And no, that is neither a metaphor nor a joke. Let's just say that the age of military service in Skaven clans is not much, shall we? However, funny as it was to see his blessed children murderize each other in many new and innovative ways, he could not let them destroy themselves. They were, after all, his tools to be used, and a broken tool, no matter how amusing the breaking might be, is not really good for much. And so it came to be that all of the various leaders and clan lords were summoned by the Grey Seers, the emissary of the Horned Rats, to Skaven Blight, where he created a great 13-sided pillar of pure warpstone. He decreed that those who could touch the pillar and live would make up the new ruling council of all Skavendom, and anyone foolish enough to refuse the ultimate authority of such a body was to have their softest parts gnawed out and noisily devoured before their very eyes by great demon rats. Naturally, there was an abundance of volunteers. After all, right before them was a god-sanctioned opportunity to become one of the 13 rulers of all of Skavendom. However, there was one tiny little problem. When the first Skaven wandered up to put his hand upon the giant warpstone monolith, he immediately burst into green flames, and screamed and screamed and screamed and screamed, for far longer than there was any actual body to be seen, since that pretty much evaporated immediately. As you might imagine, this was taken as a somewhat ill sign by the remaining Skaven, that figured, maybe not after all. However, they had also been demanded to create a Council of 13, and no one really wanted to find out what would happen if they couldn't actually get 13 members. And so thousands upon thousands of Skaven, some desperate, simply just hoping that maybe, just maybe, they were the chosen ones, others genuinely believing that they were the best thing to ever happen to Skavendom, and so on, wandered off to touch the giant green glowing pillar, the overwhelming majority of which turned into wonderful little walking candlesticks for about a few seconds before their endless screams finally faded into the night. I imagine that living next to this goddamn thing must have been particularly trying upon the poor locals. Imagine living next to an airport, for example, but instead of the ground-shattering sound of jet engines flying overhead every 5 minutes, you have the screaming, wailing souls of the freshly dead Skavens running through your house. I don't know which one would be worse in the long term, although I do put a certain stock in the Skaven one. But after many barbecues, finally there were 12 members selected, at which point the 13th side of the pillar glowed fiery red for but a moment before a massive paw print was imprinted upon the warpstone pillar, claiming the 13th seat for the greatest of all Skaven, the Horned Rat himself. Now, some might think that that was a rather cuntish move on behalf of the horned deity, seeing as there were plenty of charred corpses lying in front of said side, but nevertheless, they didn't really have much in the way of options to complain, now did they? Besides, any and all lingering wishes to complain and or rail at the Horned Rats were quickly dispelled when one particularly cheeky, and perhaps a little bit too brave for his own good, Skaven, pointed out that the assholishness of that 13th side was so great that if you held it over an open fire for a few minutes, you would get the finest quality rump steak from it. And to absolutely no one's surprise whatsoever, the poor little Skaven was instantaneously engulfed in a conflagration of bright green flames, and his scream is said to have lasted the longest of all. Fortunately, resources are rarely wasted in the city of Skaven Blight, and the poor sod's blackened bones were quickly devoured by many a rat, and occasionally the desperate Skaven that roamed the city, along with the countless other barbecues that had been created over the preceding weeks. And so, with the great choosing finally complete, Skavendom now had a ruling council. It is important to point out immediately, however, that they were not so much a ruling body in the way of a modern-day government, as they were kind of a daddy state. Basically, the various Skaven clans would still happily stab each other for extended periods of times, but at this point, they had a ruling council that could at any point tell them to either A, stop stabbing each other, or B, start stabbing someone else, or C, fuck both of you, as the Council of 13 decides that the two warring clans simply will not listen. Whether or not the council has actually spoken to the clans in question is not so important as the actual symbolism of the act, and inform all of the other clans of Skavendom that if they were to stab those two clans over there, then they would be getting to keep all of their shinies. And while Skaven politics itself certainly remained the most ill-mannered of beasts ever conceived, at the very least now it had a bit of a safety catch to stop outright large-scale civil wars that would otherwise engulf the entirety of Skavendom, as any large-scale conflicts were usually either arbitrated or outright ruled upon by the Council of 13. As such, having a seat upon the council was of course very, very important, and a great deal of politics in and of itself goes into getting one of those council positions. Now, in all due technicality, any Skaven at all can simply challenge one of the great lords of the Decay, one of the 13, including, technically speaking, the Horned Rat, although no one has been quite stupid enough to try, so far at least, to a one-on-one fight, and if the challenger were to succeed in this duel, then he would be allowed to assume the seat of the recently murdered Lord of Decay. Now, obviously, killing a Lord of Decay is no small feat. Rising to the absolute top of Skaven society requires a measure of ruthlessly homicidal tendencies and a good bit of vicious cunning to boot in the first place. However, it should also be mentioned that all of the current Lords of the Decay are firm believers in the idea of the devil you know is better than the devil you do not, and so any would-be challenger is likely to find himself faced with an unfortunate series of events long before his actual challenge is allowed to take place. Brick shithouses randomly falling out of the sky towards said Skaven, daggers suddenly arching towards his back, purely coincidental obviously, and a wide variety of other vicious, cruel, cunning, and unfortunate incidents that all seem to have one single sole goal, namely to make damn sure that said impudent little cunt never reaches so far as even the steps of the Great Tower. But now that we've finally gotten to the creation of the Council of 13, we can actually start looking at the logo. No one can ever accuse me of being the most direct of people, but we got there in the end, did we not? As you can see, there are 4 insignias carved into the logo, and the 4 seems to be the markings of 4 of the Lords of the Decay. One is for Lord Nordwell, Warlord of Clan Moors, another for Lord Cratch Doomclaw, Warlord of Clan Rictus, one for Lord Pascit, Warlord General of all Skavendom, and one for an unknown lord, possibly of Clan Carion. These are some damn interesting choices, since none of the 4 primary clans are outright represented. There is no Clan Scryer, Eshin, Mulder, and most surprising of all, there is no Clan Pestilence, and a few of them, or at least one of them, is kind of unknown. The warlord of possibly Clan Carion, we know virtually nothing about him, not even his name. We do know a little bit about his clan, however. Clan Carion is a rather unique case, in that they do not have any form of stronghold or hometown area or position on the map that they can really be nailed down to. They are a nomadic clan that travel the overworld as much as the underworld, looking for various battlefields. They are a, rather interesting lot. Essentially, they're not so much a warrior clan as they are a clan of thieving little bastards. They will quite happily wait on the sidelines, hidden somewhere, quite close to a battle, while 2 other opposing sides beat away at each other until one is victorious, and then, if the victorious party seems to be weak enough, Clan Carion will then simply boil forth from the undergrowth, stabbing, screaming, and hurling various insults, and occasionally Skaven, at the bad people, killing whatever is left of the now hopefully disorganized and weakened army, before stealing literally everything they can get their furry little paws on. And naturally, they don't simply steal other people's stuff. They are more than happy to steal from within the clan, and from other Skaven as well, to the point that it could be said that the only possession a Skaven of Clan Carion actually owns is whatever he is carrying on him at this precise moment. And even that is only safe as long as he can keep an iron grip on it. This would be a rather fascinating little faction. It would probably be primarily aligned with Clan Moulder when it comes to the flavor, since they are quite fond of large monstrous creatures like giant rats and rat ogres, since these are mobile resources that don't require much in the way of conventional resources to keep going. Giant rats and rat ogres can simply be allowed to feast on the various carrions on the battlefield rather than requiring fuels or any sort of ammunition, for example. So they would probably be a fairly bestial faction. A lot of giant rats, a lot of rat ogres, maybe some hell pit monstrosities, and other various monsters of Clan Moulders, along probably with a fair few packmasters and a large amount of Skaven slaves backed up with a mostly clan rat style army with a very few stormvermins at the back. This is probably also the one that is most likely to appear in Lustria itself, as the three other candidates really don't have any sort of foothold in Lustria whatsoever, while Clan Carion can simply be pretty much anywhere. Basically, you could very easily slap together a relatively believable backstory. Let's say that after the great defeat of Clan Pestilence at the hand of Sotek, the various Skaven clans obviously heard of this, and Clan Carion thought, that's going to be a lot of various stuff over there we could probably steal, both from Clan Pestilence and the ever-so-famed Lizardmen with all of their shinies and magical items, and so they headed over to Lustria to find and steal whatever was left behind both by Clan Pestilence and, of course, whatever the Lizardmen are not watching at this precise moment. As for the other ones, we have one more that we know very little about, and that is Lord Pascit, Warlord General of all Skavendom. This guy is essentially the Shogun, basically. He is the overall military leader of the Skaven race. Now, this does not necessarily mean that he is in overall military command. It basically just means that he is the figurehead. He might have very real power if the council demands that he should be given such, or he might have virtually no power whatsoever, or, well, as little power as a Lord of Decay could ever be said to wield anyways. But, on the other hand, he could, as aforementioned, also be one of the most powerful in all Skavendom. He could gather a vast army consisting of all of the Skaven clans, Scryer, Eshin, Moulder, and of course Pestilence, and he could also technically requisition troops from all of the other clans, meaning that his army would probably be the potentially most balanced of the four. Then we have Lord Cratch Doomclaw of Clan Rictus, and this is a rather interesting one. You see, Clan Rictus is something very unusual within Skavendom, an elite-focused army. Now, Skaven and elite go together about as well as cats and dogs locked in a tiny cage that is currently on fucking fire, but still, Clan Rictus does have a claim to the title, because for some reason, or some possible secret, that the Skaven clans of Decay, by the way, are very interested in finding out about, they are breeding far more of the massive Black Third Storm Vermin than any other clan, meaning that while their clan contingents like Scryer, Moulder, Eshin, etc. would be relatively small, since the four great clans are very distructive of Clan Rictus, they would be able to field far more great storm vermins than any other clan. They might get a bonus to their offensive and defensive capabilities, they might simply cost less to maintain or cost less to recruit, for example. Nevertheless, they would be a rather interesting little army, since of course the vast majority of Skavens would be reliant upon cannon fodder, while this army would have a surprising amount of heavily armoured and heavily armed warrior rats, with another thing that is extremely unusual within Skavendom, actually decent leadership stats. Not to mention the fact that a clan that is famed for breeding massive black-furred stormworms also have access to some of the biggest, baddest, toughest, and most viciously brutal of warlords. A clan Rictus warlord is likely to be significantly bigger, meaner, and angrier than pretty much any other clan's warlord, giving them potential access to some damn nice combat heroes. And lastly, we have, without a doubt, the most famous of the clans currently available, Clan Moors. In fact, this clan has grown to such a great degree of both power, wealth, and influence that it is starting to rival the four primary clans. It has grown, in fact, to such an extent that the four primary clans are currently conspiring to try and wipe the clan out, since its sheer level of wealth is not only, of course, a source of constant jealousy for the other clans, but also an undoubted threat. The clan grew to this level of influence and power by seizing the city of Pillars, or to give it its dwarven name, Carion 8 Peaks. Once one of the most wealthy and influential of all dwarf holds, to the point where its influence even rivaled that of the High King, and indeed, the King of Carion 8 Peaks once challenged the then High King to a duel for the overall leadership of dwarfdom. So you can see that it would be a fairly rich place. Originally, the Council of 13, recognizing that no single clan could be allowed to have this much in the way of wealth and resources, sent 2 clans to take the city from the dwarves. However, Clan Moors had other thoughts in mind. Clan Moors managed to contrive events in such a way that their allied clan was caught out in a large-scale battle in one of the upper levels of the city with a large dwarven host. The allied clan had been promised assistance by Clan Moors, who had claimed that they would sweep in from behind the dwarven host and cut them off. At the moment, the clan had no real reason to suspect Clan Moors beyond the usual suspicion always afforded to other Skaven, since they had been both ordered to take the city of Pillars, and undoubtedly, if one backstabbed the other and was seen to do so, the Council of 13 would undoubtedly move upon the survivor to make damn sure that no single clan would be able to hold the city of Pillars. However, Clan Moors were more cunning than that. They had rigged the giant hall in which the fight took place, seeing as the city of Pillars was made up by thousands of gargantuan underground halls, often measuring in dozens of kilometers of underground passageways, supported by thousands of massive stone pillars, which is why the city got its name of the City of Pillars. Clan Moors had rigged several of these massive edifices to collapse. And so, when battle was well and truly joined, the clan simply just collapsed the entire underground space on top of the heads of the dwarves and their allies. And so, in one fell swoop, Clan Moors had annihilated both their Skaven allies and the majority of the dwarf defenders. This left the council in a bit of a pickle. They had expected to be able to rely upon at least one clan to provide support in curtailing the expansion of the other. At this point, however, there was nothing hindering Clan Moors from spreading out across the city and fortifying the shit out of it. Additionally, Clan Moors had gained themselves a fair bit of favour on the council, promising resources and access to the city itself to any clan Lord of Decay that would support their claim. This paralysed the Council of 13 for long enough to allow the clan to really settle in and cement their power, to the point that no single clan could possibly be sent against it with any hope of success. And if any clans were sent in large numbers, they would almost certainly fall to the same manner of infighting that Clan Moors and their erstwhile allies had. They had essentially put the Great Lords of Decay in checkmate. Of course, this has not stopped them from constantly planning for ways of wiping them off the map, since they're insolent little bastards, and they can't possibly allow to keep the City of Pillars, but for the moment, their influence and power on the council has been well and truly bought, with a position on the council for themselves. There is at the moment no sign of the clan being thrown out of their mountain holds. On the other hand, they are also located in the City of Pillars, which is quite a distance away from Lustria, so I'm wondering how exactly they will be worked in on the Lustrian map, since there has been word passed around that the world map will not be implemented upon the launch of Total War Warhammer. This is also, by the way, the case for Clan Rictus. So there will be only one, perhaps two of the four available in Lustria. On the upside, Clan Moors gives us access to some wonderful, wonderful toys, since they have allied themselves heavily with Clan Scryer, giving us access to Warplock Jessiles and Warp Lightning Cannons and all manners of wonderful stuff. And in addition, we will get to see Warlord Queek Headtaker, the right claw of Lord Nordwell himself. He is at the moment the only truly famous Skaven we have access to, but he is quite the little lord as well. Queek Headtaker is famed for being something rather unusual within Skavendom. He is both brave, vicious, and unrelentingly aggressive. He has gained his name by stabbing, gouging, and rending uncounted numbers of enemy champions, preferring the heads of dwarves, and he would then mount them upon a great spike mounted onto his back. He is something so rare as a Skaven that is actually really fucking good at fighting. And while I certainly hope that we're going to be seeing some Clan Eshin assassins as well, if we do not, Queek would perhaps be the best anti-hero unit in the game, as he has specialized himself in hunting down and killing powerful champions. He's probably not going to be the best anti-horde hero in the game, he's probably not going to have a whole lot of AoE, but he should be the absolute finest duelist in the whole goddamn game, as he has weapons specifically designed to deal with the heavy armor of plated lords, a massive spiked warhammer. An interesting choice, most definitively. I am very disappointed to not be seeing Clan Pestilence, or Clan Moulder, or even indeed anyone really affiliated to Clan Eshin. With Moulder at least we're probably going to be seeing something via Clan Carion, but for Eshin, none of the four clans represented here have really got any true ties to Eshin. Then again, Eshin are of course hireable by pretty much anyone, so you might still see them. As for Pestilence, however, well, they might have vague ties to Clan Carion, since Clan Carion are more than happy to poison the well, so to say, of any area they're likely to be operating in, but none of the four really have a strong connection to Pestilence. So unless we're going to be seeing some form of sub-faction or perhaps a mercenary system, which would most definitely fit in very well with the Skaven, allowing you to buy units from the various great clans like Gutter Runners, Rat Ogres, or Plague Priests, we're not going to be seeing anything with an outright Plague influence, which is a little sad, definitely. Most interesting of all, though, is going to be how they're going to be placed on the grander campaign map, or even just the Lustrian map, since in many cases the Skaven will be occupying areas that are already settled by the other factions, but they will be doing so without the knowledge of said factions. I do hope that we're going to be seeing some system that isn't the current Underworld map, because, frankly, the ability to just travel in the underground is kind of boring and kind of overused with the current factions, since the vast majority of them can't actually do what they're doing, and even the ones that can wouldn't be able to move so freely as they are able to. It's just not a really good system in my opinion, to be honest, but hey, I would much rather prefer an entire underworld map, honestly. Essentially a giant network of tunnels that the various armies would have to move through. This would also counter out a little bit of the bullshit that the current Underworld system provides, and allow the Skaven to come to their full right with the great Under Empire. we're also definitely going to be seeing some new siege battles for the Skavens, as the Skavens usually do not make underground fortifications so much as just massive, sprawling, nearly impenetrable cities with fortified buildings and bastion bulwarks scattered throughout miles upon miles of densely populated warrens. And besides, we're really gonna have to see a rework of the siege system no matter what, in my opinion, so let's hope for something like that. But until next time, I have been Arch. Thank you very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.